Hello students, how are you all? Yeah, so we have completed first part of the chapter, the story of village Palanpur. Today we will continue that. So we will learn about the land in Palanpur. Let's start. So last class we all saw the factors of production. Now, if you look at the land in Palanpur, we know that land is fixed. It is the main production activity in Palanpur, and 75% of the people, they are dependent on farming for their livelihood. Now, these people who are dependent on the farming could also be farmers, and they could also be farm laborers. The well-being of these people are closely related to the production that happens on the farm. They are very closely connected with farming. Now, there's a major restriction or a major obstacle with this, that is that the land that is under cultivation, it is practically fixed. Since 1960, you can say that there has been no expansion in the land area in under cultivation. Now, since you cannot increase the land and you want, and our needs are increasing, we all have more needs. How will you meet the ends? So then some wastelands in the village had been converted to cultivable lands, but now there is no further scope of any expansion. So that means there can be no new land that can be brought under cultivation. Okay, one thing I want to just note here is the standard unit for measuring land is hectare. Okay, yeah. Now we know that the land is fixed and we all want to always earn more from a fixed amount of land. How is it possible to earn more? There is one way that we can grow more crops on the same piece of land. We already know that all land that is there in Palampur is cultivated and no land is left idle. So what do is, during the rainy season, the farmers grow jawar and bajra. Okay, and then these plants are used as cattle feed. They feed it to the cattle, and then they start growing potato between October to December. In the winter season, the fields are sown with wheat. They grow wheat, they store the wheat, and when this wheat is produced, the farmers keep the amount they need for themselves, and the surplus, is whatever is left is sold in the market. They go to Raiganj and they sell it in the market. Now, one part of land is also devoted to sugarcane, and sugarcane is harvested once every year. So, sugarcane is either sold in its raw form, or it is uh, you know treated and it is made into jaggery, and then it is sold into to all the traders in Shahpur. Why do you think farmers are able to grow three different crops in a year in Palampur? Can you think of the reason why these farmers can grow three different crops on the same land in 1 year in Palampur? Yes, because of the system of irrigation. We already know that Palampur is a well-developed village. Electricity has come early, and its major impact was the system of irrigation. So till irrigation was not there, Persian wheel systems were used, and farmers used to draw water from the wells and irrigate their small fields. But when the people saw that electric run tube wells can irrigate much larger area of land and more effectively, the first few tube wells were installed by the government. And then when they saw that this is more effective, farmers starting to uh, install them on their own. They started setting up private tube wells for themselves. So by the mid 1970s, the entire cultivated area, that is complete 200 hectares of land, was irrigated. And because of this electricity that came early, the farmers in Palampur can grow 3 crops in 1 year. Okay. Remember, children, not all villages have this level of irrigation in India. So, apart from the riverine plains, coastal regions in our country are well irrigated. In contrast, the plateau region, such as the Deccan Plateau, they have low level of irrigation. So you can say on an average, out of the total cultivated land in the country, a little less than 40% is only irrigated today. The remaining area, farming still depends on the rainfall. Now, this entire uh, idea or this entire process of growing more than one crop on one piece of land during 1 year is known as multiple cropping. This is the most common way of increasing production, and all farmers in Palampur, they grow at least 2 crops. Most of them also grow potato as the third crop. Okay. Now the Green Revolution that came in the late 1960s, it introduced Indians, it introduced Indian farmers to cultivation of wheat and rice using HYV. HYV is high yielding varieties of seeds. So they got these seeds were manufactured in a way that they could give better returns. So compared to the traditional way of the traditional seeds that we had, these HYV seeds, they promised a better produce. So, so basically, the HYV seeds, they promised much better production compared to our traditional seeds. So our traditional seeds gave a relatively low yield, and HYV gave a higher yield. This is another method by which we can increase production on the same piece of land. So what happened is farmers were using cow dung and other natural manure as fertilizers. And these were readily available with farmers, and they did not need to buy anything. But when the Green Revolution came and Indian farmers started to use HYV seeds, okay, which were promising a better produce, much greater amount of grains, one single plant. And so the same piece of land would now produce larger quantities of food grains. What happened is HYV now needed lots of water, plenty of water, and they needed chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Only then they could give you the best result. So now farming became expensive. Up till now, traditional seeds were being used. Irrigation was done with Persian wheels or rainfall, and it was working. But when they shifted to high yielding variety of seeds, they did get better results, but they had to invest more money. So farmers of Punjab, Haryana, and Western Uttar Pradesh, these were the first to try out the modern farming methods. The farmers in these regions, they set up the tube wells for irrigation. They made use of the HYV seeds, and they used the chemical fertilizer and pesticides in farming. Some of them even bought the farm machineries that were required, like tractors and threshers, and so plowing and harvesting became more faster. And what did they get in return when they invested so much? They got high yield of wheat. So now, when we started doing all these things to the land, the question that arose was, will the land sustain? Land is a natural resource, and we have to be very careful with its use. There are scientific reports that indicate that these modern farming methods have overused the natural resource base. There are so many areas where this green revolution has been associated with the loss of soil fertility. And this is because of the increased use of chemical fertilizers. Also, since we are continuously using tube wells, our groundwater is being depleted faster. Our water table is reducing. So environmental resources that we have, like soil fertility, groundwater, these are all built up over the years. These are replenished by the nature, but very slowly. And we are destroying it faster. So once destroyed, it is very difficult to restore them. We must take care of environment to ensure future development of agriculture. How do you think is the land distributed between farmers of Palampur? You already know that there are 80 upper caste families, and you all also know that 1/3 of the total families are scheduled caste or Dalits. So not all people in Palampur are engaged in agriculture and have sufficient land for cultivation. We already know that 450 families are landless. In Palampur, about 1/3 of 450 families are landless. That is, around 150 families have no land for cultivation. That means they cannot rely on farming. So what do they do? So out of the remaining families, that is the 240 families that are left, out of these, uh, they have small plots of land that is less than 2 hectares in size. And cultivating such plots of land, it doesn't bring in a lot of income to the family. So now you can see that a large number of small plots are scattered around the village in the picture. There is a picture in your textbook, picture 1.5 on page number 6, that shows the land distribution, the pattern of land distribution in the village of Palampur. So lots of small plots are scattered around the village, and these are cultivated by the small farmers. And more than half the area of the village is also covered in large plots. These plots are very large in size. So there are 60 families of medium and large farmers, and these families cultivate on more than 2 hectares of land. A few of the large farmers have land that extends more than 10 hectares or even more than that. Okay, so now you saw out of 450 families, 150 families have no land at all, and 240 families, they have less than 2 hectares of land. Around 60 families, they have medium and large means more than 2 hectares of land. So I want to share with you, okay, this is the major crops that are grown in India, and this is a map. It is color coded. You can see the key. Okay, so I'll tell you the story of this man who's Govind. He was a farmer with 2.25 hectares of largely unirrigated land, and with the help of his 3 children, 3 sons, he cultivated the land. They didn't live very comfortably, but the family managed to feed itself with a little bit of extra income. So how did they get this extra income? They had 1 buffalo and and so they used to probably milk the buffalo and sell the milk and earn extra income. Now, after Govind's death, the land is divided amongst his 3 children. So now each one has a plot of land that is only 0.75 hectares in size. So now, even if you give them the best irrigation facilities and you give them modern farming methods, the children are still not able to make a living from their own land. So they have to look for additional work during the part of the year that the crops cannot be sown or they are growing. So this is another major problem with land. Even if they are owning large plots of land today, in the future it will get divided amongst their children and will all become small pieces, and then they won't be able to feed themselves. Their livelihood cannot be dependent on that piece of land. So do you think that the distribution of cultivated land is unequal in Palampur? And if you feel so, it is unequal, do you think the situation in India is similar? Why are so many families of farmers cultivating small pieces of land? Okay, there's this one diagram in your textbooks on page number 4, picture 1.4, that is the modern farming methods. They have HYB, they have seed, chemical fertilizers, etc. It's a very nice picture. I want you all to draw it in your notebooks. Okay. This brings us to another question, that is, who provides the labor? After land, we know that the next factor of production is labor. And farming requires a great deal of hard work. Like you saw Govind, who provided labor to Govind, he and his 3 children. The small farmers, along with their families, they cultivate their own fields. So they provide the required labor for farming themselves. But what happens to those who own medium and large farms, the ones who own medium and large plots of land? In these, the farmers have to hire laborers so that they can work on their fields. 50% of India's youth are neither employed nor educated or trained. Yes, so uh, uh, so now we know that the farmers who own medium and large plots of land, they hire laborers to work on their fields. So these laborers will either come from landless families or they will come from the farmers who own a very small plot of land and they need more livelihood. So now, when farmers work on their own farm, they have the right over the produce. But when a farm laborer works on the farm, they are paid wages. Now, these wages that they are given, they are not always in cash. Sometimes they are also in kind. Sometimes these laborers get meals also. And these wages, they, they vary, they differ from place to place, from region to region, from crop to crop, and from one farm to another. Also from the farm activity. So if you're sowing, you get a different wage, and if you're harvesting, you get a different wage. And also there's a wide variation in the duration of employment. They are not permanently employed. So a farm laborer could be employed on a daily basis or only for one particular farm activity, or he could be employed for the whole year. Now I'll tell you a small incident of a small conversation between two people, that is Dala and Ramkali, and they are among the poorest of the natives of the village. So Dala is a landless farm laborer who works on daily wages in Palampur. That means he needs to regularly look for work. And the minimum wages of a farm laborer set by government is 300 rupees a day. This is as of March 2017. Okay. But Dala, he only gets 160 rupees because there's so much heavy competition for work among the farm laborers, so that because of which people agree to work for lower wages. Now, Dala is complaining about his situation to Ramkali, who is another farm laborer. Both of these are amongst the poorest people in the village. So Dala says it is difficult to find work these days. Only the large farmers hire us, and that too very limited number of days. So they're not hiring us every day, they're hiring us very limited number of days. So Ramkali says Ghanshyam, the large farmer, just bought a harvester. So we are going to get even less work during the harvest season this year. Last year, I have worked for less than 5 months in the whole year. So Dala is saying we have tractors for plowing, harvesters for harvesting, threshers for threshing. Even for removing weeds, some farmers have started spraying weedicides. So Ramkali says this year I will have to look for work in the brick making unit in Raiganj. So Dala says I owe the local money lender rupees 2000. I had taken 1000 rupees last summer, and when no work is available in the field, how will I ever repay him? I hardly earn enough for two square meals. He doesn't have enough money for eating food every day. How is he going to repay 2000 rupees? And Ramkali says, my situation is not much better either. Due to my old debt, the money lenders have refused to give me any more loan. You can look at them, since they are anyways paid very less wage because there are so many landless farmers and all of them are searching for work. So the ones who hire them can easily exploit them. So this is your work for your activity of notebook. You're going to depict a dialogue between Dala and Ramkali in the form of a pictographic story in your notebook. Okay, so with this, I end today's class. I hope you all enjoyed it. Take care, stay home, stay safe, and keep learning.